Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Caitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Sri Sri Gauranitai ki jai. Sri Radha Govardhana Dari ki jai. Sri Krishna Balaram Sri Raja Govardhana ki jai. Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru Sri Gaura. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. This chapter is from the Adi Lila, chapter 17, Pastimes of the Lord in His Youth. And this morning we have 246 to 249. And someone's gone to a lot of trouble to write them all up on the board this morning, so we'll chant them all. So thank you to whoever the scribe is. Wonderful service. Yes, maybe we can just pull it over a little closer there. A very famous pastime of Mahaprabhu. Okay. Vijay Acharya Gare Se Ratre Rahila Pratakale Bhakta Sabe Gare Lana Gela Ekadina Gopi Bhave Grihete Vaishya Gopi Gopi Namalaya Vishana Hana Eka Paduya Aila Prabhuke Dekite Gopi Gopi Namashuni Laghila Balite Krishna Nam Na Layo Kene Krishna Nam Danya Gopi Gopi Baliye Vaki Bahaya Punya Someone want to try? Anyone? Any verse will do. Take your pick. Rahila Bhakta Kale Bhakta Sabe Kare Lana Gela Ekadina Gopi Bhave Grihete Vaihya Gopi Gopi Namalaya Vaishane Hana. Ladies, any of you want to try? Eka Paduya Aila Prabhuke Dahike Gopi Gopi Namashune Lagila Balite Krishna Nam Nalayo Kene Krishna Nam Nadanya Gopi Gopi Bale Ine Kiva Haya Punya. Just do the, we can do the word for word just on the first verse. Vijaya, named Vijay. Acharya, of the teacher. Gare, at the home. Say, that. Ratre, on the night. Rahila, remained. Prata, Kale, in the morning. Bhakta, the devotees. Sabhe, all. Gare, home. Lana, taking them. Gela, went. Translation. That night the Lord stayed at the house of Vijay Acharya. In the morning the Lord took all his devotees and returned home. Text 247, translation. One day the Lord, in the ecstasy of the gopis, was sitting in his house. Very morose in separation, he was calling, Gopi, Gopi. Text 248, translation. A student who came to see the Lord was astonished that the Lord was chanting, Gopi, Gopi. Thus he spoke as follows. Text 249, translation. Why are you chanting the names Gopi, Gopi, instead of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which is so glorious? What pious result will you achieve by such chanting? Purport. It is said, Vaishnavera kriya mudha vignena bojaya. I think there is actually a typing error here. Instead, in this, what I'm reading, it says mudha, but actually it's mudra. These things happen sometimes. In the haste to print Srila Prabhupada's books, possibly in a later edition it was corrected, but it is definitely mudra, which we'll explain in a moment. No one can understand the activities of a pure devotee. A student or neophyte devotee could not possibly understand why Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the name of the gopis. Nor should the student have asked the Lord about the potency of chanting Gopi Gopi. The neophyte student was certainly convinced of the piety in the chanting of Krishna's holy name, but this sort of attitude is also offensive. Dhammavrata Chag Uttadi Sava Shubha Kriya Samyam Api Pramadaha. To chant the holy name of Krishna in exchange for the achievement of piety is an offence. This, of course, was unknown to the student. Thus he innocently asked, what piety is there in the chanting of the name Gopi? He did not know that there is no question of piety or impiety. Chanting of the holy name of Krishna or the holy name Gopi is on the same transcendental platform of loving affairs. Since he was not expert in understanding such transcendental activities, his question was merely impudent. Thus, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, apparently greatly angry at him, reacted as follows. So just on this point, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigneya Bhujaya. It's a very famous verse, as Prabhupada elaborates here. No one can understand the activities of a pure devotee. An ordinary conditioned soul cannot possibly comprehend. What to speak of the inner mind, consciousness of a pure devotee, even their kriya, their actions, and their mudra, their gestures. Mudra means gestures. We may know that in spiritual circles in India, there are many different mudras or gestures. Our pujaris quite often perform those while simultaneously chanting mantras in deity worship. And similarly, there is such a thing, and I won't even attempt to demonstrate it, but Srila Prabhupada would sometimes perform the Jnana Mudra, which when lecturing on spiritual subject matters, there is a certain way one can hold one hand with thumb and forefinger. And that was captured brilliantly by one of the early devotee photographers in London when Prabhupada gave a series of lectures at Conway Hall. And that photo was then superimplanted on the very top of Srila Prabhupada's Back to Godhead magazine. Some of us, of course, will be very familiar with that particular photo. Prabhupada demonstrating the Jnana Mudra, or the mudra indicating transcendental knowledge. So, very important pastime this morning. I wanted to recite a couple of other shlokas which are very relevant to this pastime. The first one is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 426. I'll just read the English translation. And there's a wonderful purport from Srila Prabhupada, just reiterating Srila Prabhupada's final sentence in this purport regarding this particular student. Translation: Sri Uddhava said, "You may take lessons from the great learned sage Maitreya, who is nearby and who is worshipable for reception of transcendental knowledge. He was directly instructed by the personality of Godhead while he was about to quit this mortal world." Purport: although one may be well versed in the transcendental science, one should be careful about the offence of mayada vyatikrama, or impertinently surpassing a greater personality. According to scriptural injunction, one should be very careful of transgressing the law of mayada vyatikrama, because by so doing, wait for this, one loses his duration of life, his opulence, fame, and piety, and the blessings of all the world. To be well versed in the transcendental science necessitates awareness of the techniques of spiritual science. Uddhava, being well aware of all these technicalities of transcendental science, advised Vidura to approach Maitreya Rishi to receive transcendental knowledge. Vidura wanted to accept Uddhava as his spiritual master, but Uddhava did not accept the post because Vidura was as old as Uddhava's father, and therefore Uddhava could not accept him as his disciple, especially when Maitreya was present nearby. The rule is that in the presence of a higher personality, one should not be very eager to impart instructions, even if one is competent and well-versed. So Uddhava decided to send an elderly person like Vidura to Maitreya, another elderly person. But he was well-versed also because he was directly instructed by the Lord while he was about to quit this mortal world. Since both Uddhava and Maitreya were directly instructed by the Lord, both had the authority to become the spiritual master of Vidura or anyone else. But Maitreya, being elderly, had the first claim to becoming the spiritual master, especially for Vidura, who was much older than Uddhava. One should not be eager to become a spiritual master cheaply for the sake of profit and fame, but should become a spiritual master only for the service of the Lord. The Lord never tolerates the impertinence of mayada vyatikrama. One should never pass over the honour due to an elderly spiritual master in the interest of one's own personal gain and fame. Impertinence on the part of the pseudo-spiritual master is very risky to progressive spiritual realization. I'll just go to one other famous verse here in this regard. I will attempt to chant the Sanskrit for this verse because it's very beautiful. Let's see how we go here. Okay. Before the verse, it is stated, Caitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings can be summarized as follows. Arajo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tardama Vrindavana Ramya Kachit Upashana Vraje Vadhu Bhagena Na Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Premam Pumartamaham Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Madamidam Tarataram Na Patraha. The object of worship, Araja, is the Lord in his form as the son of the king of Braja. His abode is Vrindavan, and the cowherd girls who live there with him, chief amongst whom is Radhika, are his perfect worshippers, or some Radhikas. The most enchanting method of worshipping the Supreme Lord is that devised by these gopis. The most authoritative source of divine revelation is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Love for Krishna, or prema, is the fifth and ultimate goal of human life. These are the basic principles of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's belief, and we thus consider this doctrine to be supreme. It's said the author of this verse is one Srinath Chakravarti, a contemporary of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So one last verse, everyone. It's a bit of a sloka fest this morning. Is everyone with us? Yeah? Okay. All right, so this verse is found in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 5, text 34. Let's have a try at the Sanskrit on this one as well. Tvaktva sudushaja surespita raja lakshmin dam ista aya vachasa yayo agad aranyam maya mrigam daita yepsitam anbadhavad vande mahapurusha te charanara vindam. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord, upon whom one should always meditate. He left his householder life, leaving aside his eternal consort, whom even the demigods of heaven adore. He went into the forest to deliver the fallen souls, who are put into illusion by material energy. So, our Vaishnava Acharyas, even though this last verse, generally is in relation to Lord Ramachandra and his consort Sita, our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas also give it as one of many indications of Lord Chaitanya being the Supreme Lord, because he performed this same pastime, leaving his household alive to enter the forest to deliver fallen souls who are put into illusion by material energy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becoming angry at his students. He was a teacher, Nimai Pandit, and he had his own students, but they, as we've just read, became very disrespectful to the Lord. And his own students and students generally, we won't make any broad sweeping statements, but in some cases some students are a little proud of their learning, or proud that they're even attending some school or higher education. So pride goeth before a fall. Krishna does not like pride in his devotees. It is said that the qualification one must have above and beyond all others to enter into Goloka is absolute pridelessness. Just can't remember. It starts with D. Anyway. Danya, thank you. Danya, yes. Absolute pridelessness. Absolute humility. Danya. Thank you. So this group, the students, and the other, of course, famous group, were the hardest of hard or envious Mayavadis. So these groups, Krishna Chaitanya, the Supreme Lord, knew he would have a difficult time converting to the Yugadharma Harinam Sankirtan. It's said even today, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted Prakashananda Saraswati in Benares, and not only his 60,000 followers, but all of the residents of Varanasi became Vaishnavas due to the influence of Lord Chaitanya a little over 500 years ago. And even today, it's said there are many Gaudiya Vaishnavas, there are many Vaishnavas chanting Hare Krishna in Varanasi, in Benares. So the impact was lasting. So these two groups, Mahaprabhu knew he would have difficulty. He had a tough time of it. He visited Varanasi twice, once on his way to Vrindavan and the next time on the way back. And it was on the way back that the conversion of Prakashananda Saraswati and all his followers took place. So sometimes it is necessary for a spiritual teacher, they do manifest a certain amount of transcendental anger when a person stubbornly resists the mercy that they're being offered by the spiritual teacher. Srila Prabhupada shared one time that he was only ever chastised by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati on one occasion, and it wasn't even his fault. Prabhupada was sitting quietly listening to a lecture by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati with other disciples and congregation. And one gentleman sitting next to Prabhupada started to talk to Prabhupada in the midst of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's lecture. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had to interrupt his lecture to chastise both of them. He said to the gentleman who instigated the conversation, "So, Mr. Such and Such, you think you have purchased me with your 200 rupee a month donation? And I buy, Babu, perhaps you would like to come up here and give the lecture." And Prabhupada said at the time he was mortified. But upon reflection, he thought, no, this is actually a great blessing. Guru Maharaj knows who I am. And to be chastised by the spiritual master is actually a great benediction, because it said a guru will only, it's like we must have, a spiritual master will only chastise a disciple who he knows is spiritually strong enough that he or she will not go away. Their ego is not too fragile that you can be instructed, and you'll take that instruction to heart. So there's another incident where Prabhupada was having a room conversation with some disciples, and there were many guests sitting there, and Prabhupada was preaching very nicely. And one Indian gentleman, he asked Prabhupada a question which was too personal. So Prabhupada said, "That's none of your business." Which it wasn't. The man was just there. And on another occasion, this is of course a very famous Old English saying, Prabhupada had one servant who was quite well known as a bit of a gossip, and being privy to so much of Prabhupada's personal activities, that particular servant would readily share, but in amongst all that there was other things going on. So anyway, on one occasion Prabhupada had to chastise him and say, "Mind your own business," which is a good thing for all of us to try and do. So these personalities were, the Lord's students, were sons of Smarta Brahmins. The word Smarta comes from Shruti and Smriti, means persons who are very anxious to become great scholars in the Shruti and the Smriti, the Vedic literatures, which are very vast, and in turn get a good education and then become teachers themselves. And as a result of becoming teachers, they can earn a good livelihood, they can achieve some fame in prosperity in human society. And being Brahmins, of course Brahmins traditionally at the very head of the Vedic system. But they could not, and Mahaprabhu at this point in time had returned from Gaya. He'd been initiated by Srila Ishwara Puri, and he was starting to manifest his Acharya Swarup, you could say, as a world spiritual teacher. But some of his students were not particularly interested in the devotional path, the bhakti marg, so they became offensive. So at this point, of course, Caitanya Mahaprabhu is starting to formulate his plan to accept the renounced order of God and leave home, to fully manifest his Acharya Swarup, world spiritual teacher. We've heard that It was the guru of Mahatma Gandhi who made the statement, as goes Bengal, so goes the rest of India. And as goes the rest of India, as goes India, so goes the rest of the world. And it's worth noting that Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, members of the Panchatattva, and so many of their associates and descendants all appeared in the great land of Bengal. And of course Mahaprabhu spread the Yuga Dharma, religion for the age, all over India for 6 years, walking barefoot as a sannyasi. And then subsequent generations have continued, and of course in recent times the vigorous preaching of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his son Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and in the modern age Srila Prabhupada, where now we see literally hundreds and hundreds of temples of ISKCON on the subcontinent, and of course all over the world. So there's definitely some validity in whoever said it for that statement. And of course Prabhupada coming to the West, and we've heard Mukunda Maharaj tell this on numerous occasions, how he was there, University of California, UCLA, not sure which campus it was, but Prabhupada was always very anxious to preach on university campuses because that is where the so-called intelligent young people go for higher learning. So on one occasion Prabhupada was speaking to some students. One of them was a young Indian man, and he challenged Prabhupada that what use is your teaching bhakti, Vedic culture? We need technology. And Prabhupada refuted that erroneous statement by saying, you have come here as a beggar. You've come here begging for some higher mundane education. I have not come here as a beggar. I've come here as a giver, to give something really special, really unique, and that's transcendental knowledge. And on other occasions, Prabhupada emphasized that the foreign conquerors of India over a millennium, 1,000 years, who invaded India and ransacked and rampaged, sacked Mathura to the point where we can't even practically recognize it these days, because Mathura, Krishna's birth, transcendental Janmashthan, in ancient times it was such an opulent city. But not only Mathura, but Ayodhya, and so many of the great holy places and cities of India ransacked. But all the foreigners who came, they overlooked the most precious thing. Yes, they may have taken some gold and some jewels, set up the different trading companies to ship back to Europe or the Middle East all the precious spices and silks and cottons and grains which only can be found in Asia. But they overlooked the most precious thing, and the most precious thing, of course, are the Bhakti Shastras, these wonderful devotional literatures. So that is the history. We heard on 2 occasions 2 nice offerings on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance anniversary, this verse chanted, which can be found in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, when Prabhupada was asked on one occasion, what is the most important shloka in all the Vedas? And without hesitation he replied, Yashya Devi Para Bhakti, Yata Devi Tata Guru, Tasyahi Kahita Hiyata Prakashante Mahatmanaha. For one who has implicit faith in the words of Guru and Krishna, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. So Prabhupada considered that, and we can cite His Divine Grace's own example of having that implicit faith in the words of Guru and Krishna. and coming to the Western world after many years of preparation, and not seeing bodily differences that the young people or the older people of the Western countries, even though they may have dressed differently and looked different to the pious inhabitants of Bharatvarsha, still Srila Prabhupada saw beyond all that to the spirit soul and wonderfully delivered the message of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's interesting that as early as December 1966, the lectures were recorded and we can all listen to them. Prabhupada began lecturing on this Caitanya Caritamrita. That's very significant. Prabhupada wasn't interested in teaching sub-religious principles. Other people can do that, vegetarianism and so on. But Prabhupada was anxious to impart the sublime teachings of Caitanya Mahaprabhu at the first opportunity. Of course, he realized in the early disciples who were there at 26 2nd Avenue may have struggled a little bit in their own admission to fully comprehend some of the sublime, deeply transcendental messages that Srila Prabhupada was passing on, but still Prabhupada made that attempt, and on many other occasions throughout his travels he would speak on Caitanya Caritamrita, as he did on the other glorious Caitanya Bhakti Shastras. So, let's just see. We should go from here. Perhaps because these verses will now take us gradually to, because this is pastimes of the Lord in his youth. So, we know eventually, and not to jump ahead too far, but to jump ahead far, what to do. We know that Uncle Akrura was sent by Kamsa to Braj specifically to take Krishna and Balaram out of Vrindavan, bring them to Mathura, where he hoped, unlike all the demons he had sent previously who were unsuccessful in killing the Supreme Lord, he hoped in Mathura he may have more luck. So Akrura came again in Gaura Leela as Keshava Bharati Maharaj, who externally appeared to be a Mayavadi sannyasi, but actually he wasn't. He was the incarnation of Akrura, who is famous amongst the 9 angas of bhakti for offering prayers. That is Akrura's. He is the example of one who offers very wonderful prayers to Krishna, Akrura. So at the time that Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order of life to deliver the students and the Mayavadis, there weren't many Tridandi sannyasis in Bengal. There were some in South India and travelling around, but the most prestigious and prominent form of sannyas in that part of India at that time was the Ekadanda sannyas of Sripad Shankaracharya, technically known as Advaitavad. So, and Keshava Bharati was close by, just as we read about Maitreya Muni and Vidura. And who was the third personality? Maitreya Muni, Vidura, Uddhava, thank you. So one was close by. So similarly, Keshav, in this particular instance, Keshava Bharati Maharaj was close by. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went because the order of sannyas is still to this day, what to speak of hundreds of years ago, respected. The custom is you offer obeisances to a sannyasi, someone who has dedicated their life and soul, words, mind, everything to the service of Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya went, and in recent times, two recent lectures, where in recent times Mukunda Maharaj has shared, and I've heard other sannyasis in ISKCON share, it's quite an open secret. It's known as the sannyas mantra. And it's a mantra that our Gaudiya Vaishnava sannyasis have been initiated into at the time of their sannyas. And that is a famous mantra chanted by the Avanti Brahmana. And you can find it very easily in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it begins with, I will cross over the insurmountable ocean of material nayscience or ignorance by taking shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda. So that is there, but there's also in our Chaitanya literature inference that a famous pastime that the night before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to take sannyas from Keshava Bharati, he was discussing with him, and he told him, last night I had a dream. And in this dream, a personality whispered this mantra to me. I just want to check with you that it's actually the sannyas mantra. So Lord Chaitanya whispered that mantra into the ear of Keshava Bharati, who acknowledged, yes, actually that's it. So our acharyas give the realization that it was actually Lord Chaitanya initiating Keshava Bharati, not the other way around. And Keshava Bharati was quite stunned with that revelation and understood that this is no ordinary mere mortal who I'm awarding the sannyas mantra to. And some say that that mantra is Tat Tvam Asi, which is very famous in the Shankarite Sampradaya, which can be variously translated as, in Old English, that thou art, or you are that, Brahman, spirit, Aham Brahmasmi. Prabhupada would recite this constantly. You're not that body, you're spirit soul, Aham Brahmasmi, wherever he went. So, very famous. And some of the Lord's associates who were there, and I've read two different personalities, one Murari Gupta and the other Mukunda. And take your pick, or take both of them. One of them said, in relevance to discussing this with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they gave a different interpretation, which is, you are his, which is the Vaishnava understanding that we belong to Krishna. Yes, we're Brahman, spirit soul, not these bodies, but we also belong to Krishna. You are his. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu liked that very much. And it goes deeper to where some of our Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas elaborate to, you are hers. Anyone want to hazard a guess who her is? In a loud voice? Jai! Srimati Radharani ki jai. Yes. Thank you. So that, yes, that is our Gaudiya Vaishnava. And that correlates last shloka for the morning. Aradhananam sabesham Vishnu aradhanam param tasmat paratnam devi tadiyanam samacharam. that in a conversation between Lord Shiva and his consort Parvati, they are discussing what is the highest form of worship, who is the most exalted personality to worship. And they both agree that it's Vishnu, Krishna. That is, but even higher than the worship of Krishna and his expansions, Vishnu Tattva, is the worship of the Tadiya, or the devotee of the Lord. And of course the greatest devotee of Krishna is Srimati Radharani. So perhaps I'll stop there, everyone. If anyone has a question or comment, I don't know if anyone does, but maybe we can wake up Bhakta Mike. He's been sleeping during class. He had a big Harinam in Surface Paradise last night, Harinam Ruchi. But just in case, I think this is being televised, isn't exactly the word, but wherever it's going. Mani Bandagopal Prabhu would like to make a comment.
This statement is Mayada Pratikam, was that it?
Yes.
Was it? Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
So, the offence of speaking impudently in front of your seniors. This came up previously in the Bhagavatam where Vidura was inquiring from Uddhava. He wanted to know, the essence of the Vedas. And but Uddhava was much younger, and he felt that he wasn't the proper one to do it. So according to etiquette, he said, well, Maitreya heard everything that I heard. He is your contemporary, he's much older, your contemporary, so you should approach him. So it was just interesting that that same principle came out in that pastime.
Yes, yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. I was thinking of that pastime. We know that before even Prabhupada took sannyas, he was given the title Bhakti Vedanta by his contemporaries because he was so learned. But there was that story, and I'm sure everyone here probably knows it, when Prabhupada was travelling around preaching while he was still a Grihastha, he used to take a brahmachari with him. And because in India at the time there was such deep-rooted respect for saffron, so the brahmachari would sit on an asana of some sort and lead a kirtan. And Prabhupada would sit amongst the audience. But when it came time to give class, the brahmachari would refer to Srila Prabhupada. And everyone would be quite, I guess, a little startled that someone amongst them. But once Prabhupada started to speak, then his authority was obvious.
Yeah, very nice, Ram. Thank you. Yeah,
I was thinking one other pastime I just read.
Sure.
I'm reading in Hayagriva's book about the early days. You were talking in the beginning of the lecture about we can't understand the internal mind of a pure devotee when Lord Caitanya was chanting Gopi Gopi. So in that pastime when Prabhupada got sick and he wanted to go back to India for a while to recuperate with hot weather and Ayurvedic preparations. And so one disciple asked Prabhupada innocently, do you think one of your godbrothers could come back to look after us, to teach us? And Prabhupada didn't answer the question directly, but he immediately went into a reverie of just thinking of his own spiritual master. And Hayagriva describes that Prabhupada, tears sort of were popping out of his eyes, and he just said, my spiritual master was no ordinary man. So that was really amazing.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone? Oh, Mani Bandagopal, no, please.
Just that point you mentioned about the mudras. I was just reading a couple of days ago in Jamuna's biography. One devotee who was travelling Prabhupada in India, he eventually became one of the BBT photographers. I just can't think of his name. Bhagava, no, it was... Yeah. Anyway, he, in one lecture series, he was taking photos of Prabhupada, and he noticed Prabhupada was using different mudras for different points, and altogether he photographed 20 different mudras Prabhupada was using. And there was a whole discussion. Jamuna gave a whole discussion that what each one meant and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Wow. No, thanks for sharing that, Prabhu. I never heard that before. That's wonderful. They counted 20 different mudras.
So
and
different
each one.
points with different mudras. So a simple way to understand a mudra is you're showing with your fingers what you're saying.
Okay.
So, so different points. He was using different mudras to emphasise.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. We sometimes see pictures of Sripad Madhvaracharya sitting with two fingers like that, and some say that was to indicate, because he was a Vaishnavacharya, that there's the Supreme Lord and then there's the living entity. We're not all one. So that was, Madhvaracharya wasn't giving us a peace sign, he was just, he was a jewel. There are two jewelers. Got a big group of wonderful Indian visitors here, everyone, so we might let them come into the temple. Hare Krishna, good morning. You come for darshan, please. Bring the kids. Jai Ho. Please. Yes, you can come.
It's funny because just yesterday I was looking up.
Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's very nice. Just in case you didn't hear that, everyone, yes, in Christian theology also, the artists would often paint the saints of the Christian tradition showing mudras. It's very nice. Thank you. All right. Jai Sri Caitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.